Hello and welcome to Bulimia Sucks. My name is Kate Hudson Hall and thank you to everybody for listening. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting and inspiring conversations based on bulimia, anorexia, and other eating disorders. And each episode includes their personal stories of where they are now and their difficult journeys and their steps taken into their recovery. And also we'll talk to professionals who work with people with eating disorders. Now, my Bulimia Sucks audiobook is now live. If you haven't read it, heard it, it's on Amazon and iTunes. And if you'd be interested and would like a free copy, then email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com. And then I can send you the code so you can download it for free. And the other thing that I've been working on is our coloring books. Oh, it's been very therapeutic just to make the coloring books. I've loved it. So I've made one for bulimia, anorexia, and also binge eating. And there is a stress relieving anxiety one. And they have 35 plus mandalas, nice, beautiful, relaxing mandalas that you can color in. And then there's a quote over the mandala. And then on the other page, there's questions about that quote and what you can learn from it to be able to help you in your journey with your eating disorder or your anxiety. So if you want to check them out, if you put my name into Amazon, they'll all come up. Now, I'm very excited today because our guest is Madeleine Karlsson. So Maddy suffered from bulimia and anorexia and orthorexia at different stages of her life when she was in her 20s and has dedicated the past 13 years to her healing by studying nutrition and becoming a holistic health and nutritional coach. Also a Pilates instructor and a yoga teacher. So she's got a lot of tools in her toolbox there. And she realized through her studies and healing that she had completely lost trust in her body and that restoring this was the real key to her healing. And she now has a business helping women and men who suffer from overcomplicated relationships with food and exercise, combining Pilates and yoga, mindfulness, and an intuitive approach to eating. So welcome, Maddy. It's fabulous to have you join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's a true honor.
It's great. I'm so pleased. So now, let's start. Should we start when you had your eating disorder in the beginning, disorders, and take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to find an exact, I was thinking about this earlier, an exact time when this started. I think it was in my teens that I just started asking myself a lot of questions, right? Like, should I be eating this? Am I allowed to have this? Am I eating too much? And food suddenly, I've always loved food. I've always loved cooking. I used to cook with my grandma. It's something that I was always really passionate about. And then when I got into my teens, I started having all these questions come up. And so I started restricting myself, telling myself like, oh, no, you shouldn't be having that. And, oh, maybe that's going to make you fat or things like that. And I think that at the time, there were a lot of like low fat yogurts, low fat cereals, like low calorie this, low calorie that. And I was like, okay, well, I should probably, because I saw my mom, for example, doing it. So I thought, okay, well, I should probably be having that too. And I should also be careful. And I should also. And so this whole kind of, I started getting into my head a lot about it. And I started restricting myself. And I think what happened quite naturally is that as a result of restricting myself, I would have moments when I would binge. Because I would restrict myself so much. And I thought that I was being a good woman or a good human or a strong woman by
strong
by not eating.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, great.
And then it all becomes too much. And as you just get too hungry.
Exactly. And then it backfires. And then I would end up just eating I mean, binge eating, we all know what that looks like. It's not pretty. And then the guilt. And, you know, I've always kind of struggled with, you know, was I really a bulimic? Maybe I wasn't, because I didn't make myself throw up. I tried to, but I didn't. I was one of these people who just couldn't do it, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I did have the binge eating, and I had episodes of anorexia because I would deny myself food even though I was hungry. And then I also had this obsession with exercise and calories and controlling everything I was eating. And I was literally counting all the calories I was eating and then going to the gym with my like notes in my head thinking, okay, this is how much you've eaten in calories. Like now this is, you need to go and spend it all at the gym and preferably more. Right. And so I was caught in this vicious cycle of eating to go and exercise and then exercising so that I was allowed to eat. So I really, it was really a terrible place to be, because I was in my head all the time, and all I could think about was food and exercise and how I was going to get rid of the calories and how I was going to exercise enough so that I could allow myself to eat. And then while I was eating, I was already thinking about how I was going to get rid of the calories. So it was, and then I would also starve myself. I would go for a day without eating because I thought that I needed to make up for what I'd eaten the day before if I'd eaten more than I was allowing myself to eat.
Yeah, yeah. And then it just becomes a vicious cycle, doesn't it?
It's
really difficult to figure out how you can take back control.
Exactly. And I think that this went on for many years, and there were phases where it was better and there were phases when it was worse. I remember when I moved to Australia, I was 19 years old, and I had a wonderful boyfriend at the time, but he was an athlete, a professional athlete. And so he was very dedicated to his training and he was mindful of what he was eating and so on. But that made me even more obsessed. So he would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to his trainings, and I would do the same thing. And I'd be at the gym every morning at 5:30, and then I'd come home and eat breakfast, and then I'd go back to the gym, and I would maybe go to the gym 2 or 3 times because he was a professional athlete and he would sometimes train 2 or 3 times. And so it became really, really bad at that time. And I think I isolated myself a lot because it just became all consuming. My whole life revolved around food and fitness and becoming fit. And I remember running on the treadmill, trying to burn all those calories. And I was like, I am going to run myself to death. Like I was really, my body was so depleted. I was feeling so weak in a way, but mentally I thought I was strong because I was pushing myself to the edge every single day. And I thought that was strong and healthy.
Yeah. So if people were in that situation now, what would you say to them?
To stop fighting their bodies, to stop fighting against their bodies, and to stop seeing the body as an enemy that they need to fight or deprive, or like our bodies try to show up for us the best they can. And I think what was very healing for me was at some point I've been doing a lot of alternative healing therapies, breath work and meditation and yoga and all these things to kind of reconnect to my body. And I was in a breath work session one day, and our leader said, like, you know, take a moment to reconnect with your body and to just think of how much it has put up with, like how you have treated it and how well it's shown up for you, even when you've hated it, even when in the times where you haven't given it the rest and the love and the nourishment and everything, like your body's still there and it still shows up for you. And I remember I just started crying and crying and crying because it made me realize how badly, how poorly I had treated myself by doing those things to myself. Yeah. And that was kind of a turning point where I was like, wow, I need to stop fighting. I need to stop fighting, and I need to start loving and caring for my body and all the amazing things the body does for us. Like even just my legs for carrying me, for being able to walk, and my lungs for being able to breathe, and all these amazing things that we kind of sometimes lose track of.
And so what else did you do after you had that realization? What was your next step?
So I was very, I was very unfortunate, but fortunate at the same time. I got so badly injured from running and over exercising that I could barely walk. And I ended up in a doctor's office because I had pain in my shins and in my knees. And he said to me, he was like, okay, you're no longer allowed to exercise. Like, you're no longer allowed to go to the gym, and you can go to Pilates and do a bit of yoga or do some swimming, but like, you need to stop this. And I was like, how can you be a doctor and tell me that I should stop going to the gym? Isn't the gym the healthiest thing you to do? And at the same time, I had terrible digestive disorders. I had a terrible bloating. I had terrible discomfort. And obviously that came from binging and from restricting myself. So I completely destroyed I didn't destroy it, because we never destroy these things, but basically my belly was telling me that what I was doing to it was not very kind. And it gave me all the signs, and it was telling me, like, you need to stop this. So I was injured and I was ill. And so those are the two things that I was fortunate enough to experience at the same time. And that made me realize that what I thought was healthy was actually destroying my health. And so that's when I asked for help. That's when I realized, okay, something needs to change. And I asked for help. And it's also at that time that I discovered Pilates, and Pilates was a saving grace for me. It was really what saved me, because it made me reconnect to my body and start working with my body and start seeing exercise and movement as a way of looking after myself, as opposed to beating myself up.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point, because you said you had those pains in your stomach and then you had problems with your shins and all sorts. And when we have a pain, it's there for a reason. It's telling us, well, hang on a minute, something's got to change here. You've got to change what you're doing.
Exactly. And I lost my period for a long time as well. And so all those signs, at some point I was like, okay, well, my body's telling me things are not okay. And I think that at that time, the fear of what I was doing, destroying myself, was bigger than the fear of stepping into the uncertain and slowing down and reassessing my relationship with food, and stop being so controlling with food, and stop being so controlling and obsessed with exercise. I think one fear became bigger than the other, because before then I kind of knew I needed to change something, but I was so fearful of slowing down. I was so fearful of getting off this calorie counting, calorie burning kind of starvation train. And I was convinced that if I did that, I was somehow going to get fat or unworthy or unlovable or whatever it was, or that I was going to be perceived as weak. But then the fear of destroying myself and destroying my health became bigger. And that's when I thought, okay, I really hit rock bottom, and it was time to reassess everything I was doing to myself.
So if somebody has that fear, they know that they're in a pattern that is destroying them, and they have that fear of making that change, what would you say to them?
I think self-love, like, going back to like looking at yourself and thinking, like, I'm so fortunate to have this body, and I'm so fortunate to be alive, and there's so many things I can be grateful for right now. And understanding that change is always brings up fear. It always brings up fear, but it is the biggest our biggest breakthroughs come from overcoming our fears, right? So understanding that the fear is normal, and that we always want to stay in our comfort zone. So it's not because fear comes up that it's a reason to step back. It's a reason to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier to stay in your comfort zone, but it's making that decision, isn't it? That you are going to take a little step forward and address that fear.
Absolutely. And also understanding that it's uncomfortable, but I think that staying where you are is worse and more uncomfortable, and will bring, I think that life gives us stronger and stronger signs. And I already had several signs before I had my big meltdown. I was being given little signs like, what you're doing, you should, and I knew I should stop. But I really needed that big hit on my head to really realize, like, ouch, what I'm doing is really. So just know that you at some point you're going to have to make the decision that this needs to end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of that quote: if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. We like that one, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of my favorites.
Mine too. Mine too. Mine too. And I think that we're so kind of trapped in our comfort of knowing what we're doing, even though we know that it's not the right thing. It's comfortable because it's what we know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, making that small change may be uncomfortable, but it's going to be not as uncomfortable as staying in that whirlwind of negativity.
Exactly. And I think that what I realize for myself, and even now when I see people who follow my program, etc., is that once we unlock that, all of a sudden so many other things unlock in their lives, because we are so consumed with this battle against ourselves. And once we heal that, then there are a lot of other things that heal and that unlock for us. And so I think that that's something that I find really beautiful. And I see it in my own life. I see the many, many years that I was trapped under that dark cloud. And then once I came out of it, I was like, oh my goodness, there's this whole life to live, and I can be happy and love myself. And I can have a really wonderful relationship with food where I love food and nourish myself well. And I can move in a way that makes me feel good. And exercise doesn't need to be something that's horrible and where I'm beating myself up. It can be lovely, and it doesn't have to be something that's forced. And I don't have to live by rules, and I don't have to beat myself up. Like when that cloud lifts, you're like, wow, like it's amazing.
Yeah. And you can feel so much calmer.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes. That too.
Yeah. So once you made that realization, what were your next steps then?
So I asked for help. I worked with a therapist. I think that was really important to me, to really understand what was going on and have someone to speak to. And then I committed to healing my relationship with food. So I did that with a therapist, but also in conjunction with someone who was a nutritionist. And so I was very lucky. I asked for help and I got help. And then at the same time, I became passionate about Pilates. And so I started training Pilates, and my mom was very supportive of me doing Pilates because she saw that that was helping me a lot. And she was very happy that I stepped away from all the crazy stuff I was doing before, where I was running and doing a lot of like high intensity workouts that were kind of very taxing on my body. And so she encouraged me to become a Pilates teacher at that time. So I think that a lot of things, like I shifted my focus away from just thinking about food and fitness. And I thought, okay, how can I grow? Like, and what do I need in my personal journey? Like, I think that's something that I see in hindsight that I didn't realize at the time, but like food and fitness, those were just two things that I held on to and that I became obsessed with, but there was a deeper suffering that needed to be healed. And so it was going back to heal that I really needed. And then having support of people around me telling me like, hey, like, you're going to be okay. Like, this is just part of your journey. Like, we're going to help you. Like, and that was something that I really, that I'm very lucky that I had that.
Yeah. And it's, what do you need? Because everybody's different, aren't they? So what individually, what specifically do you feel that you need right now to help you move forward in your journey?
Yeah. And I think that it's eating disorders are terrible, but if there's anything that we gain a lot of knowledge about ourselves in our healing, and we get to know ourselves, I think, in a beautiful way, because if we can, the journey out of them brings a lot of beauty. And I think I've learned a lot about myself over the years, and I've explored a lot, and I've been curious to learn more. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey to get to where I am today. And I think like the journey never ends, right? It's like once you keep learning and you keep exploring, and I think it's beautiful in a way. I think that is the kind of the reverse of the other side of the coin, right? That there is a beautiful journey ahead of you if you are willing to start it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
There is. and the incredible learnings that you can learn about life and about yourself, and how you can, help yourself to take yourself forward. Beautiful. Yeah. So then you became a Pilates instructor as well.
Yes.
And then what happened after that?
So I became a Pilates instructor. I slowly but surely shifted my career. I'd been working in politics. I was working in London in the shadow cabinet. So that was a very different career. But I had already qualified as a Pilates instructor, and slowly but surely I ended up working full-time as a Pilates instructor. I set up my business and I started working. I was living in Monaco at the time, and I started working with private clients in Monaco. And at the same time, I was doing my nutrition and health coaching online. And so I became 100% involved in helping others on their journey to better health in a way that is mindful and kind and sustainable and loving towards themselves. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then a couple of years ago in 2019, I set up my business online. So I have all the workouts online. I have all the everything. And then I also do nutrition and health coaching, and I work with private clients who are in the same scenario as I was all those years ago, to help them kind of restore a better relationship with food and fitness and themselves. And so that's what I've created.
Wow. Amazing, Maddy. Amazing. So if somebody came to you now that had an eating disorder, so what would be the kind of steps that you would take them through?
So I think, like, I always recommend, if you really have an eating disorder, to work with a therapist, because I am not trained in eating disorders. I have my journey and I have my experience, and I can relate to people who are going through that journey, but I haven't been given the tools of a therapist to support them in the same way that a therapist would. So I always recommend working with a therapist. But then my job is more to, okay, well, I understand that most people still want to exercise, for example, or they want to learn how to eat healthy. And so my job is to help them and support them and educate them about, what does healthy eating look like? What does a mindful relationship with food look like? What does listening to my body look like? Because a lot of the times we're so disconnected from our bodies. We're so disconnected from our hunger. If I tell people, like, oh, just eat when you're hungry, but they're like, I don't even know what hunger feels like. I don't know what I should. So it's about reconnecting with that, and reconnecting with the body. And so working with Pilates and yoga, because those are more mindful ways of exercising, right? What more mindful movements, and that really make us tune in my workouts. I really encourage people, like, hey, see how that feels, like, see how your body's opening up. And slowly but surely, by using the workout, so to say, we become more attuned with our bodies, and then we start becoming more attuned with our hunger, and then we become more attuned with our necessity to rest, and then it's about developing a more intuitive way of eating and living, really, even of moving, because it's just about listening to the body and what is it that I need right now? Maybe I need some stillness, or maybe I just need to eat something, or maybe I need to sleep, and that's how easy our relationship should be with our bodies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so do you have would you have a specific program that people?
Yes. So I have a platform called Fit Body Fresh Mind, which is a membership program. You basically become a member and you get access to Pilates workouts and some yoga, and you get access to recipes, meal plans. And the way it's designed is that every week you get 2 new workouts and a featured workout. So the longer you're a member, the more workouts you get access to. The platform now contains about 300 workouts, and they're all designed for you to work with your body, of course, creating strength and, all those beautiful things that we all want. We all want to be strong and feel fit and have endurance and all those kind of things, but in a way that respect your body and where you speak to yourself kindly. So it's about, like, okay, like, if you can do 4 more repetitions, great. If you need to take rest right now, take rest. And I always repeat this in my workouts. It's about working with the body, not against it, because our bodies react so much better when we work with them. And so I've also integrated some mindful eating exercises. I've integrated some meditations, and it's all about working with the body in all aspects of our life.
So within the course, so there's yoga, Pilates, mindfulness eating, and meditation.
There's mindfulness. Yeah, there's some meditations, and then I have like a couple of exercises. I have like one which is a digital detox, for example. That is one of the objectives. 1 week is to disconnect a little bit from social media and so on, to tune in more with ourselves. And then one of the weeks is centered more around mindful eating. Am I really listening to my body? Tips on how to tune in with your body, etc. So every week we have a slightly different kind of subject.
Oh, I love it. So for people, excuse me, for people that don't know what Pilates is, because most people kind of have an idea about what yoga is. But if they don't know what Pilates is, so could you explain it?
So Pilates is, I would say it's more gymnastics and more core based. The person who invented Pilates was Joseph Pilates, and he actually called it contrology because he realized that all athletes and all humans benefit from having better control over their bodies, of how they move, and restoring balance in our bodies, and working on flexibility and mobility and strengthening the core. So really
the core, that's
yes,
the goal, isn't it?
Exactly. So having a strong core, because when we have our strong core, we have a better posture, our organs are better aligned, we move with more fluidity, with more control, and it actually benefits the movement of the whole body when we have a strong core. It's like a strong trunk, right? The tree has a strong trunk, and then it can have the beautiful branches and the leaves moving away from it. But that's kind of the idea with Pilates. And also having better postural alignment. I think that right now we're all kind of looking over our screens and looking over our computers. And so Pilates really helps restore that balance in the body, of opening up the front body and creating strength in the areas that tend to get weak.
Yeah. Amazing. And how much information in the course is there about the mindfulness eating?
So the course, the monthly membership is mostly the workouts and the recipes and some mindfulness exercises. Then I also do I have a coaching program which is a group coaching program called Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Best Body, which is all about tuning in with the body, learning how to listen to the body. And that's done in a coaching group where we meet every week and we speak about a different subject. It's, for example, not just what we eat, but understanding how we eat and why we eat, and chewing our food. And also we speak a little bit about sometimes families and friends having judgment upon, like, and because I think that if we have been an emotional eater, or if we are an emotional eater, we become very self-conscious of when we're eating. Are people judging me? Why are they telling me this? Maybe that. So addressing a little bit of that as well. And just empowering women, because it's mostly women, to listen to their bodies and trust their bodies. It's like, if your body's telling you that you're hungry right now, you need to eat. And if you get hungry again in a few hours, you get to eat then again. So you don't have to. I think for me, a lot of the binging and the stuffing my face was due to the fact that I thought that I wasn't allowed to eat. But it's like the moment I lifted that and I was like, Maddy, you're allowed to eat, then I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I can eat when I'm hungry. So that means I don't have to eat to stuff my face now, because in a few hours, if I want to eat again, I'm allowed to eat. Yeah. And that was fabulous. So kind of like passing on that kind of that ethos and that philosophy, and really having, I was going to say having fun about it, but having fun with it, not about it, but having fun with it, as in it doesn't need to be so serious, because we all have had those struggles. And so understanding that we're not alone, and kind of, doing it in a way that's fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you are hungry, yes, depriving yourself is not going to work, because you'll end up just, eating everything else. Everything else that you can, even though there's that last piece of chocolate cake in the fridge or whatever, and then you'll end up eating that as well, because you're trying to deprive yourself of the food. But if you tune into your body and tune into that feeling of being hungry and eat when you're hungry, it works.
Yeah, and one of the things I like that you mentioned at the beginning were the coloring books. Because I one of the things when we do this program, Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Body, what we also work on is everything else in our life. I think sometimes we use food to fill something that is missing within us, but that thing that's missing within us is not food. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's having a hobby. Maybe it's reconnecting with friends. Maybe it's healing a relationship. A lot of the times it's got nothing to do with food, but food is just there. And so it's easy and it's what we know. And so we use it to fill ourselves up, but it's a lack that comes from somewhere completely different. So I encourage everyone to look at their life as a whole and just see like, okay, well, how fulfilled am I in my career? Do I have a creative outlet? Is it something that I need? If so, what would I do? Well, maybe I should start. I actually have someone who started doing coloring books and it was extremely healing for her. So I think it's about looking at our life as a whole and not just thinking I have a problem with food. No, the problem is probably not with food. The problem is somewhere else. And look, yeah. And so that's also something that we do in that program.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because there's reasons why you're reaching out for food when you're not hungry for it. So it's addressing those, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And looking into those. And of course, everybody's different. So they're going to be different triggers, aren't they, for people? So it's addressing those and then working with them and finding ways to replace that.
Yes.
Positively.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, amazing, Maddy. So how can people find you? So you didn't mention your website. So tell us again what your website is.
So my website is fitbodyfreshmind.com.
Right. Okay.
And I'm also on Instagram, fitbody.freshmind. And I also have a Facebook page, which is fitbodyfreshmind. Fitbody.freshmind. But the website is fitbodyfreshmind, all in one word.
Okay. Okay, good. So we'll put all the links
down
below for people to be able to find you. And if you had, if you could tell somebody, if you had somebody in front of you that had an eating disorder, and what would you tell them right now to help them to maybe think about stepping on that pathway to recovery?
That the road you have ahead of you is beautiful and that you don't have to live this way. Ask for help because you're not alone and there are people here who want to support you and you are so loved, and that the journey you have ahead of you is a truly beautiful one, but that you need to be the one to take the first step.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fabulous. That's beautiful. Woo! Oh, thank you, Maddy. This has been the information that you provided here has been really powerful. It'll be really useful for people and they need to come and find you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Maddy. This has been just amazing. Thank you so much. So that's all for today's episode of Bulimia Sucks. And thank you to everybody for listening. And before you go, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode, and let us know what you think. And we'd love to hear what you think. So do leave us a review on wherever channel you listen to it, whether it's Google Podcast or Apple iTunes or wherever it may be. We'd love to hear what you think. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And I will chat with you in the next episode.